Welcome to the Industrial Talk Podcast with Scott Mackenzie. Scott is a passionate industry professional dedicated to transferring cutting-edge, industry-focused innovations and trends while highlighting the men and women who keep the world moving. So put on your hard hat, grab your work boots, and let's go.
All right, once again, thank you very much for joining Industrial Talk, and thank you for your continued support of this platform that celebrates industry professionals all around the world. Yes, you're bold, brave, you dare greatly, you innovate, you collaborate, you're solving today's problems each and every day in a rapidly moving market. It's exciting out there. Thank you for what you do. Now, this conversation is with a legend, Chris Luecke, Manufacturing Happy Hour podcast. I want to highlight more individuals who are in the manufacturing and industry space, who are telling stories and who are really passionate about you succeeding. And this is he's a heavyweight. So let's get cracking with the conversation. I'm going to try to make it quick. And the reason for it is that, here we are having a conversation, Chris and I. Storm is going on outside my window. We're having a grand conversation, and lo and behold, power goes out. Live by technology, die by technology. Conversation stopped. So we get back on thinking, hey, maybe we can do it again. So we just sort of carried on with the conversation. So I'm sort of slated to try to knit this together, this conversation together. No, we're having a great conversation. And you know what else happened? Yeah, the power goes out again. And then finally, we just had this conversation. After the third time, said, okay, let's reschedule. So we rescheduled the next day and finished up the conversation. However, just be mindful of the fact that it's me trying to edit all of the good parts, because he came in with a wheelbarrow full of insights, and all of it is important. And so I just said, I don't know, I'm going to edit out the dead spots, because there were dead spots just because we were online, and then just sort of pull it all together. Just recognize the guy brings absolutely an amazing insights into what he does, why he's passionate, and how he is focused on manufacturing success. That's Chris. His contact information, everything out there. This is a numero uno connection. If you don't, you just got to do it and follow him. Manufacturing Happy Hour podcast right there. All right, let's get on with and sorry, again, I edited, but it gets a little jumpy, and you get to be brought into the fact that there's power outages, but that's okay. We're a podcast. So here's the conversation. 3, 2, 1. Chris, welcome to Industrial Talk. Thank you very much for finding time in your busy schedule. I've been looking forward to this conversation in a big way. How are you doing today?
Scott, I'm doing great. I've been looking forward to this conversation as well.
Shut the front
Thank
door.
you. Yeah, thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah, this is, listeners, this is going to be a conversation really about Chris, his podcast, Manufacturing Happy Hour, why. And, of course, we're going to get into some manufacturing stuff, but really it's about me interested in Chris. That's pretty much the gist of that story. So you have an audience of one for sure.
Hey, I love it. Everyone's audience starts with the first listener.
You know what's so funny about how I started the podcast? I started it as a result of a sort of a marketing platform for my other company. And I would always go in, and if I wanted to meet somebody and, hopefully get some opportunities, I would say, hey, would you be willing to get on my podcast? And you've been in the podcast business for a number of years. And it was like, even if it was my wife forced to listen to it and myself, that was the audience.
Yeah. But hey, it's most people don't get this, that podcasting is almost most effective, especially into the B2B world, as a prospecting tool, a way to build those relationships without being like, hey, can I sell you something?
Sorry, as we just went right into it, just because I agree with you 100%. I think it's even better. I think it's a way of being able to create that relationship. Everybody talks about creating the relationship with your prospects, but it goes a little beyond that. It's like, yeah, now I'm talking to you, and now I understand who you are, and now we're friends.
Exactly. You know? It's that foundation of trust that you start to build.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, I'm all in. Before we get into that, more of that conversation, because I can tell you I'm ready to roll. Give us a little background on Chris.
Yeah, well, it's funny. The reason I brought up some of those topics is that's kind of how Manufacturing Happy Hour got started. So, at the end of the day, I'm an engineer by degree, went to Marquette University, started my
typically.
Yeah. Started my career as an engineer, working with Anheuser-Busch. So that's where I kind of got that beer spin to everything that I do. And go ahead.
No, that's just, that's cool stuff. Now, yeah. I always loved, they have tours, right? I always go to the beer tours.
Mm-hmm.
It's always clean.
Yeah. No, I mean, someone's pointed out that I've spent my career with Budweiser as well as Rockwell Automation, and my view of manufacturing is kind of a spoiled view of manufacturing because, as you said, both of those companies keep things pretty tidy, very clean. They hold themselves to high standards. So, we talk about going in, when I talk about manufacturing no longer being dull, dirty, and dangerous, right? Admittedly, yeah. I was always in a world where it never was dull or dirty or dangerous. Those are two companies that were always keeping it real. But to get back to the story, so started with Budweiser as an engineer, but quickly went into sales with Rockwell Automation. And I had moved out to the Bay Area where I was calling on a younger demographic of customers. And I realized I needed a way to reach a younger audience. I was in my 20s at the time when I started Manufacturing Happy Hour as what was ultimately a campy YouTube series that was recorded on my iPhone where I'd talk about automation technology with various subject matter experts, solutions architects over a beer. And that's where it all got started. So Manufacturing Happy Hour was just like a side hustle I was doing while I was working a full-time job. And eventually, as Manufacturing Happy Hour evolved into a long-form podcast, a leadership podcast disguised as a manufacturing podcast is how I describe it oftentimes today, I started seeing an opportunity to really take it into a full-time platform where I'd be a full-time content creator, party planner, and basically community builder at the end of the day.
All right, Chris, we are having some weather problems. You have been such a soldier, and you've been so good about the whole thing. Power's been going out in my place, and let's just continue. So we already have the background. I've added out the stuff that we're chirping about, but I got the background. That's all good. What made you decide that I need to start a podcast, out of the blue? That always fascinates me because there's always that point in time that you might be driving or laying in bed or doing whatever, watching, and, I need to do that. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so it started, the first time I hit record was 2016. So I gave a little bit of that in my background. The necessity was that I was calling on a younger demographic of individuals within the manufacturing industry that consumed content through videos and podcasts, etc. But the other thing was I knew I had a strength for this. I knew I was comfortable being on stage, in front of people, on camera, etc. And I knew I was, to an extent, wasting a skill set if I didn't try to experiment with, at the time in 2016, a relatively new medium of podcasting, right? Back then, I think a lot of people thought it's oh man, podcasting's been going on for a while. It's going to be tough to break into that market. But now you think about it almost 10 years later, I'm I was still early to the game back then, all things considered. So it was a combination of needing a new way of reaching folks in the manufacturing industry, as well as playing to my own strengths. And I think that's a combo people should look for in whatever field they're in, right? What plays to your strengths and what's a need of the market. And I brought those two together through podcasting. For me, it was podcasting.
And I see that. I believe that mic is an Audio Technica. Is
yes.
it?
Yep. I use a lot of Audio Technica. And actually, I've been using this one basically since day one. Like, I've got a lot of equipment that's tried and true.
Absolutely. And I would imagine you see, I had the same journey. I bought two of those, and it was so funny because the journey that I went on, similar to what you were saying, for whatever reason, I'm driving, coming back from a client, listening to a podcast, and I said, I can do that. And all I wanted was some Trojan horse marketing capabilities to have some sort of a different conversation to have with somebody other than, hey, we do industrial maintenance. You want to talk to me? They'll run out of the room like they're on fire if that's the case. And I can see that. And so my journey, and see if it's the same. What the? Just momentito. There's something
No
popped
problem.
Up. Weather problems, everyone. Weather problems. Tell me if this is the same when you decided that you were going to podcast, because I've been podcasting for a number of years too as well. And it felt like I've been doing it forever. You researched, you went through that process, you bought the stuff, and then you made that decision that, okay, I guess I got to do one. Tell us about that one.
Yeah. So it's funny. My podcasting journey actually started with a different podcast. I technically still run a show called Pubcast Worldwide, where I was traveling around the world. I podcasted in 5 different countries, interviewing people over drinks in bars and breweries around the world, really exploring drinking culture and craft beer culture around the world. And that started when Manufacturing Happy Hour was just a campy smartphone video series. But the reason I bring it up is I remember the first bit of equipment that I bought were like $20 USB headset microphones. I plugged them into my laptop. Like, my initial investment into podcasting for like the first 6 or so episodes was probably like $40 in total, because I already had the laptop. I already had some recording software on there. And I think that's something that gets a lot of people held up with getting started. People always make excuses. This isn't, podcasting is obviously what we're talking about right now, but people tend to use equipment as an excuse to not start many things, right? I don't have the right hockey stick. I don't have the right running shoes. I don't have the right microphone, right? So they just put off starting it forever. I took an approach where it's just like, I'm going to buy some of the basically bare bones cheapest equipment I can, right? Couple headset mics for $20 each, plugged them into my laptop. I recorded 5 or 6 episodes like that. And at that point, I'm like, hey, I love this. I'm having fun with it. I've released some episodes. A handful of people are listening. I'm going to take it a step further. And I upgraded and bought the next round of more proper recording equipment, right? Like a Zoom H6 remote recorder for people that are in the podcasting space. They might know that. But my lesson for the folks out here is never let equipment be an excuse. I mean, literally, like, you can do most content creation on your smartphone these days. So just get started. And then once you're getting in a groove, once you realize you like it, maybe most importantly, once you realize there's a potential audience there that can grow over time, then you can start putting down some cash to
I don't like the way I sound. I don't like the way I look. There's a ton of reasons why people don't do it. But don't you think it's a medium that is needed within industry as a whole? And when I say industry, I mean, it's manufacturing, it's whatever, oil and gas, it's what. Don't you think it's time for many to just go all in and be able to produce the content that is consumed by younger people like yourself?
Yeah, I think more. I mean, it doesn't always have to be in podcast form, right? That's one medium. But hey, an executive could film a selfie video of them walking around their machine shop floor talking about what they're seeing out there. that day. Give us the behind the scenes, post it to LinkedIn, whatever it is, right? There's so many different mediums that you can hit record and post on: podcasting, YouTube, LinkedIn, you name it, right? I just rattled off 3 right there. I do think it's time for more people to do it. And, I'll be very tactical here for a second. Another reason why I switched from just doing short videos for industry and switched to doing more of a long form podcast for industry was I knew my target market in manufacturing has to commute to work, right? The manufacturing world is a place where you got to show up to make stuff. So I'm like, all right, I got that 20-minute commute for them to tune in. I'll make episodes, 40 minutes, right? 20 minutes there, 20 minutes back, boom. And you can listen to 80s hair metal or punk rock or, a dozen other podcasts during the other, 4 work days a week, right? I wanted to tune in where I knew my audience was hanging out. And I wanted to do it in a way where I could cram a lot of value into a relatively short period of time, because there are a lot of other things people can be doing. So, when people are asking, it's like, oh, well, what length should I do? And things like that. Like, your audience will tell you what length, but be respectful of the fact that, there are a lot of other things they can be listening to. So if you can cram some good content into 20, 40 minutes, not only are you giving them something to learn from, but you're also respecting the rest of their time as well.
Again, for the 4th time. Welcome back,
Scott. What's up, Scott? Good to be back.
Yeah, it's been 24 hours. We had a huge storm come through, listeners, and it knocked everything out. But we soldier on. The story has to be told. Chris has one, and it's an amazing story. So, thank you for your flexibility, my friend.
Of course, I know many people are probably listening on audio, but I wore the same outfit just to keep the same vibe going.
I did. I changed my hat and my shirt. I wasn't thinking proactively like you are. You're amazing. Appreciate it. So where we left off with, we've got, and I've got the recording. I'll do it. We have your background. I want to venture into a little bit more detail about your platform, why it's important, and what are you trying to accomplish with this particular platform? What's that noble purpose that says that's why it's here? By the way, I'm going to ask you some questions about beer because I'm fascinated by that.
I love it. Do you want me to jump in first then to the why behind the platform and what that brand purpose is?
Yeah, I think that's important.
Well, I can talk to that really easily because I think the common theme of the Manufacturing Happy Hour platform that exists as a podcast, as a community, as an event series, it's all about getting people together to collaborate and share ideas over a beverage or in the style of having a beverage with someone, right? You're candid, you're frank, there are no wrong answers. You're brainstorming, you're trying to think of, whatever will drive things forward, right? And that's the vibe first and foremost of the podcast, right? If people listen to the interviews, I'm trying to equip manufacturing leaders just like you are with the tools and technologies and insights by listening to the experiences of folks that have been there, done that. That's the vibe of the podcast. Now, the event series, as well as the community that exists digitally through platforms like LinkedIn, that's almost giving my audience the mic, so to speak, because it's one thing for me to have that conversation with someone one-on-one. It's another thing to get a bunch of like-minded, forward-thinking individuals in the same room or in the same virtual room to also have those candid conversations, learn from one another, teach one another. And that's really where I see the strength of Manufacturing Happy Hour is it's meant to be a place where people come together and distribute ideas that help them in their careers, businesses, and the industry as a whole.
Do you take that information that is, flipped over and put it into hey, come over here. Here's some great insights. And it's instead of you having to listen to the podcast or the information or the roundtable or the community, do you publish like that?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, you'll see basically my entire LinkedIn presence, for all practical purposes, is just a rehash of what goes on the podcast, at the events. So I think if the listeners are picking up an action from this, I'm always trying to meet people where they are, right? If you want to tune into the podcast, great. But that is by no means the only spot you're going to be able to find the ideas, the insights, the people that appear on the podcast, right? Like I'm sharing that to LinkedIn, newsletters. The show notes pages I create are like a summarized version of a lot of that. There are a lot of different spots people can go to get the vibe, the energy, and the insights of manufacturing happy hour.
Do you see it benefiting? I mean, do you see some tangible benefits? I'll get some pushback on something. It's always sort of the same voices because they're the ones that sort of put themselves out there. But two, is it really, are we making an impact in a positive way? Because that's what we're here. I mean, heart and all that garbage.
I think so. I think all of us, as I like to describe us, voices of industry, I think we are making an impact. I know we're making an impact based on the connections I've seen made across the industry. I'll give you a couple examples, right?
Yeah.
Like I threw like a dinner party, like almost like evening getaway for like 10 voices in manufacturing, gosh, like 2 years or so ago. A ton of those people are still great friends, have found way to work together, introduced one another to do new business opportunities. So there's that for sure. But most recently, I was just thinking, I was at, and this kind of goes back to me reflecting on my career 15 years ago when it started. I was at the A3.
What, 10?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I'll tell you what, when I wear a hat like I am today, I shave like 10 years off of my appearance. So that's a fair comment, Scott.
Yeah. It's amazing. Continue.
Yeah. To go into detail there, I was at the A3 Business Forum, right? Association for Advancing Automation, one of the best professional organizations in our space, in my opinion, particularly for those in robotics, automation, etc. And there was a younger individual there, fairly fresh out of college, that was building his own robotics company. He had just started his startup journey. And first of all, I'm like, thank goodness there's like, for lack of a better word, young blood like you coming into these meetings and things like that. And what I did to leverage my platform, I was at a live event, but I went on LinkedIn and I reposted one of his recent posts of him literally building his startup in his garage, right? There was an AMR there and I reposted it. I'm like, hey, so-and-so is here for his first A3 Business Forum. If you get a chance to meet him, reach out. I think he said like something like over 10 people reached out to connect with him after that, right? And it goes back to, even when I'm at a live event, I'm going to use my digital platform to make connections with other folks, right? Because people see that. And then, because I was also thinking back, it's like, what would I have loved when I was like fresh out of school going to my first events? I'm like, gosh. And by the way, some people did this for me, right? People were making introductions for me, getting me introduced to the right people in their own way. It's a different world now where we have digital platforms where it's like almost like retweet, repost, meet this individual that just entered in our industry. That's a perfect example, I think, of something that I did that, thanks to the strength of my network and my platform, was able to create some meaningful relationships. But the other thing I'd say is that's not something that's unique to me. Other people can take those little actions that drive connections. So those are a couple of examples of where I see the work that you and myself and our other peers are doing making an impact.
See, that's well said. Well said. I'm more dazzled by that young pup coming up with and developing a company. I would love to have gone to that garage and just sat there.
Yeah.
Just hang on every word. And it's always what I always sort of marvel at is the why.
Mm-hmm.
What were you just sort of having a taco, and then all of a sudden you said, "Gosh, I can do this." But it's just the human spirit is always so amazing. I just think it's incredible. And you bring up a good point. All of the technology, and you've seen tremendous change. You've been doing this for many, many, many years. You've seen it from when you started and now where we're at today. I believe there's a tremendous renaissance that's taking place. A lot of it's way above my pay grade, but the reality is I see it, I feel it, I sense it. And then I have conversations with people like you and others. Where do you see it going? I mean, futurize it, maybe. I want to know your thoughts.
Yeah, I'll futurize it, but I'll also keep it somewhat simple. I think sometimes we overcomplicate like the future of manufacturing, and I'm going to give a really simple answer to start. I heard this from someone else where they described, in the 80s and 90s, people were flocking to New York to work in finance, right? Because that's where the money was. In the 2000s, 2010s, people were going to the coasts, the Bay Area, to work in software and tech because that's where the money was, right? Now we're in a situation where COVID being, I'd say, the mainstream event that opened many people's minds up to the concept of supply chain and what happens when those get disrupted and how important having...
It was like a second, man, when it was like, oh my gosh, you just realized how fragile that chain was.
Yeah, 100%. So that's one of the key events that has brought on this manufacturing resurgence here in the United States, within our neighbors, within a lot of Western nations, etc. So to put it very simply, the next generation is going to go where the money's at. Like it was in finance, for a couple decades. It was in tech for a couple decades. And let's think about this. Couple the opportunity where people are excited and investing in manufacturing again. Couple that with the opportunity where skilled trades jobs are in vogue again. College has gotten just about as expensive as it can become. So the next generation is looking at alternatives to education. I want to be very clear, like college is, and as far as I'm concerned, always will be a great path to success. But I'm excited that there are other paths to success. There have always been these paths, right? But I don't want to say we demonized skilled trades for a long time, but we...
Oh, you could say that because we did. Yeah, I'm just telling you we had.
We made it seem like if you took that career path, you were taking a lesser career path. And now that tone is changing. The necessity is changing around it. So I see this perfect storm is a cliche reason, but there are real opportunities as to why manufacturing is and needs to come back. There's an opportunity to get into that space through college, skilled trades, whatever your path may be. And it's in demand enough right now that you can make some money doing it. I've said this before in many interviews. I think what it's going to take is that first wave of 22, 23, 24-year-olds that really get into it, talk about what they're doing, talk about how they love manufacturing, share their stories with their friends that are 5 to 6 years younger that are trying to figure out what they're going to do with their lives. That's going to be the catalyst that gets people going back in. Again, people will go where the money is a very simple way of describing that, but manufacturing, hard tech, and associated jobs with that are going to be the new spot to be.
Do you think that we in industry as a whole, are we positioning ourselves to be able to inspire those young individuals, those young professionals, or do we need to step up our game to be able to do that? Then I have a question about the money and the capital markets and manufacturing.
Yeah, I think we do need to step up our game. I think we've been doing the right things to this point, but I think what we as folks that are in the trenches in the manufacturing industry that have been sharing this narrative for a long time that automation creates jobs, there are a lot of great fulfilling career paths in this space. We need to recognize that many of those conversations, I feel, are still happening within an echo chamber, and it's getting a little circular. We need to be very deliberate about making sure we're doing the activities to reach the rest of the population, to talk about what manufacturing really means, to talk about what the opportunities really mean. It means manufacturers, executives at small to mid-sized manufacturers, startups in hard tech, etc. They need to be showing up to the meetups that take place in their cities where other software tech companies are, where the other movers and shakers are. Manufacturers need to take it upon themselves to be like, I'm going to show up in these spaces where maybe we haven't been showing up, especially in cities, right? Like, I think in more rural areas, manufacturers and the big manufacturing companies in those areas have always had more of an anchor presence, right? You know, the local manufacturing company is probably going to be the sponsor of the annual 4th of July fireworks show that's going on. But in cities, there's just so many other things going on that manufacturers need to get out of the shop, get out of their office, and head to the meetups where young tech talent is hanging out, where college grads are hanging out, where the rest of the tech and startup community is hanging out, and be like, hey, we're here. You might not know a ton about us yet, but I bet if you get to know us, and I'm going to do the things I need to do as a manufacturer to make sure you get to know us, I bet you're going to be interested in what we do after you have a little more familiarity with our space.
See, it's interesting. When I started podcasting, I had another company, and it was sort of an epiphany where I said, well, Scott, talking to myself, you're going to have to learn this stuff. You're going to have to sort of advocate. You're going to have to sort of put yourself out there and be able to have these conversations. And it was all wrapped around how do I market? You know, I sort of outsourced it, like, here, do some marketing for me, blah, blah, blah. And then I realized that was weak on my part. And I recognized the necessity at that time of saying, Scott, you're just going to have to, no matter how uncomfortable it is, you got to get out there and you got to do it. And you got to be that face. And I think the same thing exists for manufacturers. They just have to, not 9 to 5 or whatever, 10-hour days, and then run on home and whatever. There has to be, I believe that one individual or the individuals have to sort of be those advocates for the future and put themselves out there.
I agree. And I think part of it is, another way to think about it is, you know, if you're tired after work, right, and you're like, why do I need to go to this event? Why do I need to go to this event, this meetup with the tech community or whatever it is? The way I think about it is, if your ecosystem is strong, if the manufacturing and industrial ecosystem is strong, your business is also going to be strong. It's an all ships rise with the tide scenario.
Yeah.
In order for an ecosystem to be strong, you need to be getting the new people into it, right? You can't just be resting on your laurels of years of success making parts. If you're a job shop, for example, for the same 10 customers, right? You got to grow. You got to have that growth mindset. You need to take the actions that get you in front of people that allow you to expand the ecosystem.
Okay, shifting gears real quick. How do you address what I believe is again, I'll use the term renaissance within the manufacturing space? There's a lot of buzz, a lot of chirping that's happening out there. They're saying, hey, let's reshore, nearshore, bring in this and make us the most powerful manufacturing country in the world. And all of, we see that, okay. But it also gets down to, can we, given, the challenges with resources, is that a more automation question, or how do we do it? How do we achieve that?
I mean, it's an automation question. It's also, as we were just talking about, it's a people question. I was just having a conversation with an automation company, and the better we get at manufacturing, the more we leverage technologies, the more we're going to get to opportunities to increase our production and efficiency exponentially instead of incrementally, right? The way manufacturing, I saw someone make a little video on this the other day. Manufacturers often think of improvements in the context of like a 5% improvement, right? I'm doing 1,000 widgets per minute right now. If I can do, 1,005 widgets per minute, or, 1,100 widgets per minute, right? If I can just increase that by 1 to 10%, it's going to add up over time, right? But I think manufacturers need to be thinking of, and I'm not the expert in this yet by any means, but they need to be looking at the exponential opportunities, rethinking the way manufacturing is done, rethinking the way automation plays a part in their process. Is there a way for me to do 100% more than I was doing before? Or is there a bet, an investment that I can take in automation in manufacturing that'll allow me to triple production? These are the things, the questions that I think manufacturers need to be thinking about more, because it's not just looking for that small step change now. It's looking for those incremental changes that allow us to do the manufacturing that I see is possible now, thanks to virtual commissioning, digital twins, all of these tools
Yeah.
that allow us to shave weeks off of a project schedule. All of these tools that allow us to check whether or not our process is going to work before we even set it up. These are the
Brilliant.
things that, as
Yeah.
they become more mainstream, because there are already a bunch of companies using this, but as they become more mainstream, we're going to get people to start thinking about manufacturing very differently than they have for the past 50 years.
Do you believe the capital markets are all bullish on manufacturing? Do you think that there will be a surge in companies and capital looking to place capital for their business, for their manufacture, for expansion? And do you think the driver would be leveraging innovation? If I was a manufacturer and I'm trying to get capital, I better have, I believe, better have an innovative mindset and leverage that technology. Do you agree with that?
I would agree that you need to have that innovative mindset when it comes to, getting any sort of funding. Usually that conversation involves, how many people are you employing as well. So I think you need to be very good at articulating the connection between innovation and people. And you know what, as I'm saying this, I think I'm coming to what my own realization or perspective is around that. The better you are at tying that together, the more you're going to be able to say, we're gonna be able to produce 3x, 10x what we would have been than had we used traditional manufacturing, because we've got the right people and the right brain power and the right technology combined. I need to dive into this a little bit more in my free time and really kind of get some data and stats behind what I'm saying. But that, at a very high level, feels like the combination that gets people excited about manufacturing and shows them that it's real, and shows them that we're not talking about bringing an old school factory from the 70s back over, onshore. We're talking about new, clean, safe, innovative manufacturing and manufacturing jobs.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I like the fact that my background's a finance, and you're absolutely correct. Yeah, the normal model would be go in. And it's like you said, it's people. How do I deal with that and be able to impact the bottom line, my expenses in such a way? But I think we're at a point where I always say, if you're in business, you better be educating, because it's happening. You better be listening to individuals in podcasts like yours and others. You better be educating. You better be innovating, and you better be collaborating. I believe that those from a stool perspective, I like that, just because I want to interact with other individuals. I might not have all the answers, but the opportunity to collaborate is exciting. And saying, oh yeah, right, I'm better because of that, right? And then, of course, it's all education. So, it just is what it is.
Mm-hmm. No, great points.
Because you've been in automation, because it's been such a journey for you, and you've seen it from many years back to where it is today. What's your take on where we're going? Again, I want to put that future hat. Where do you see it? I mean, I want to know, all of this automation conversation, is it getting better? Are we, we were at an event together. Is it going to be, are there going to be robots that are going to sort of look like humans and take care of business? And,
I mean, there will be humanoids for certain applications, no doubt. I'm not going to go the humanoid route, because I do think there is just, it's cool that they're working on that.
Right.
the route I'm going to go though is there's so much lower hanging fruit right now. Like, let's think about where AMRs, autonomous mobile robots, those are like, if you compare those to humanoid robots, 10 years ago, AMRs were not ubiquitous. They were still, the technology was being proven out. They're ubiquitous now. Like, go use AMRs. If you are in a warehouse, if you have an opportunity to leverage them, that's been proven. The risk factor of adopting those now is not that high. So I want to start off with some really low hanging fruit type opportunities. One area that has been talked about in the automation space for a very long time is digital transformation, Industry 4.0, getting all these connected technologies together and making.
Yeah. Go ahead, continue.
I'll be quick with this. I think artificial intelligence. I know artificial intelligence is that missing piece that's allowing to take a lot of that, what was, let's just call it random data, and start contextualizing that data into something meaningful that manufacturers can use. That's an area where I'm excited about automation, because now all those promises of digital transformation that were going to require a lot of data scientists and hours and hours to cleanse data, contextualize it. There are now tools that exist at the edge, for example, within inside of a factory that can contextualize and help manufacturers draw conclusions from what's going on inside of their facilities in real time. And if you get enough of that, again, that's going to be one of those factors that contributes to exponential increases in productivity in manufacturing.
Now, I agree with you on that too, as well. That's spot on. And it's so funny. You mentioned Industry 4.0. How long have we been talking about that? How long have we been talking about IoT, IIoT, whatever you want to call it? And the stumbling block was a tsunami of data. Good, bad, whatever, noise, not noisy. In that data, there was gold, and that gold was tactical, and I can make better decisions. But it was always the point where, how am I going to, I can't even process this. But now we do. And now, hopefully, the data is scrubbed or good, and then we're making those decisions. You're absolutely right. I agree with you. People are talking about Industry 5.0.
Yeah, I mean, I am not subscribing to that term. I know what it is there. But if you think, remember, this whole Industry 4.0, 3.0 thing refers to industrial revolutions. Like, my perspective, and we don't need to talk about buzzwords that long, is Industry 5.0 is just another fancy term that you can tack on to be like Industry 4.0 plus people. That's all it is. We're still in this current revolution, right? Like that hasn't changed. So
let's nail this down. Let's succeed at this. Let's deliver, because boy, I'll tell you, it was a report that came out, and they were talking about the size of the market, the IoT market. It was outrageous. But then again, it sort of collapsed on itself to a certain extent. It became more of a miscellaneous file. Sort of, let's just stick it in the Industry 4.0. Let's take that file, whatever that goes over here. Digital twin. Well, let's put it over here. Now I think we're maturing enough to be able to sort of say, it's happening. By the way, go ahead.
Want to know how I can tell we're maturing? I just recorded a podcast that, and I mentioned this at the 36-minute mark. I mentioned to my guests, it's like, we've been talking about digital transformation this whole time, and we have not once said the term digital transformation. Once you can get to the point where you're not just throwing out these terms for the sake of throwing them out, but you're talking about what's actually going on behind the scenes, what actually turns taking data, contextualizing it, and making decisions based off of that, what actually turns that into a reality. That's when you're getting beyond the hype and you're getting into reality.
I like it. You're hitting on all cylinders. I appreciate that, Chris. Hey, we have to wrap this up because we have other. We're trying. We're both in the school of thought that we have to make sure that it's a certain amount of time so that people can listen to it and then get back in the car and listen to it again and finish it up. Yeah. Because once they leave, it's hard for them to come on back.
Yep. No, I hear you. I love keeping it tight. You've asked great questions. This has been a ton of fun. I appreciate you having me on, Scott.
Yeah, you're awesome, man. You're so resilient. There it is, right there. You're the definition of resilience, dealing with all the weather as I look back. it's not so bad. We're going to make it through.
Hey,
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I know you're based down in Louisiana. I love traveling to Louisiana. I've spent months of my life down there. I know dealing with the weather down there is part of the beauty of living in that area.
Wow. You took the negative and turned it into a positive, saying it was the beauty. It's like, holy cow, it's steamy. I talk about the Louisiana blindness is when you get out of a car that's cold and then you walk outside, then your glasses all fog up. And
I lived down I-10 not too far from you in Houston for 4 years, so I definitely felt that a ton.
Same weather. Absolutely the same weather. What is the best way for somebody that says, hey, I want to get a hold of Chris? LinkedIn?
Yeah, LinkedIn for sure. And I'd also say, hey, if you want to tune into the podcast, I mean, just search Manufacturing Happy Hour on Google. You'll find it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube. Should be the thing that just dominates the whole first page of Google. Yeah.
Okay, here's the deal. What's your favorite beer? What beer blew you away?
I got two answers to this. My first answer is I'm a Midwest guy, so I get all 4 seasons. I love seasonal beer, right? I love a cold Pilsner in the middle of summer. I love a nice, spicy, thick winter warmer in the winter when it's snowing outside. My all-time favorite beer, though, is from St. Louis, Missouri, where I'm from originally. Four Hands Brewing has a beer called Citywide American Pale Ale, and I just think it is the perfect beer. The design of the can is beautiful. It's very much about the city St. Louis, and it's a pale ale, and it's hoppy, but it's not too hoppy. The ABV is like 5.5%. Beer is something you should be able to enjoy and not feel exhausted after having, right? Not everything needs to be an 8.5% double IPA, although I do enjoy those. I just like it because it's drinkable, it's sessionable. If you want to have 2, you can have 2. It just does everything a good beer should do.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I remember being introduced to a Belgian beer, and you know it. It's Duvel, and it was just it's high in alcohol. I was like, what the? Where am I at here, man? It went right to my head.
Yeah, that's a good beer in the winter. Like if you're having a nice Belgian quad, that's thick. It's got some like burnt sugar taste to it. I mean, that's a beer to have when it's snowing outside for sure.
Well, thank you. Parting insights into beer. I love it. I will definitely. I'm going to go online and look for Citywide IPA.
Look it up. I think you can only get it in St. Louis in the Missouri area, but I'll make sure I grab some for you one of the next times we see one another. I'll make sure you at least get a can. I always have some on hand. There's no doubt about that.
Very good. You are wonderful. Thank you very much. Thank you for your resilience, and I appreciate you being on Industrial Talk, my friend.
Hey, thanks a ton, Scott. Have a good one.
Hey, we're going to have all the contact information for Chris out on Industrial Talk, so fear not, reach out. This is a high priority connection, so make it happen. We're going to wrap it up on the other side. Stay tuned. We will be right back.
You're listening to the Industrial Talk Podcast Network.
Yeah, what I tell you. Yeah, it got a little choppy in there because I tried to edit it, but the reality is, here's the deal. Chris, again, brings incredible insights, tremendous wisdom, gained over many years. You never have a bad conversation with him. You never, ever you leave going, I didn't get much out of that. No, he brings insights. He brings wisdom. That's Chris. Subscribe to his podcast. Yes, you will not be disappointed. Industrial Talk is here for you. I say it all the time. You want to have a conversation? You want to amplify your message? You want to get it out there? Yeah. Just go out to industrialtalk.com. Click on the button that says, hey, Scott, let's connect. And I'll say, absolutely. Let's have a conversation. So anyway, go out to Industrial Talk. Let's connect. Let's have a conversation. Let's see how we can amplify your story. All right, be bold, be brave, dare greatly. Definitely hang out with Chris. Change the world. We're going to have another great conversation shortly, so stay tuned.